Hello everyone, welcome back to my Tokyo fan club, where today we're all going to go in a circle and say our favorite reason why we love Tokyo. Welcome to the start of a new series called Worth the Watch. In this series, I will be not going over any spoilers like I do in all my other videos. I'm going to sort of talk about something that's new and out of the box, and it's like, why is this here? Should we even watch it? And I'm gonna give my opinion on if I think we should watch it or not. The only spoilers are gonna be stuff that we learn in episode 1, like basic building blocks or plot points that you know right off the bat, or stuff that isn't a secret, isn't a spoil, isn't something that would ruin the excitement of the show. So Money Heist Korea, Joint Economic Area, is it worth the watch? It's an interesting new show. It has a new premise. It's based in Korea. It's not a real building like the original Money Heist. It's a new mint. It's North Korea and South Korea coming together, and it takes place in the future, which is a pretty cool concept. And the battle between North and South Koreans actually offers for a lot of standoffs and problems that aren't in the original series, and right off the bat, I think this is a really cool addition. In gleaming K-drama fashion, all of the episodes are either an hour in length or longer, but there's only 6 episodes in season 1, which is a drastic difference from the 13 episodes in season 1 of the original. So there is some stuff that's left out, like episode 6 of the original is basically cut, and a lot of the ending of season 1 in the original is not in the ending of this season. I feel like it'll just be in season 2 somehow. But other than that, that's basically the differences as far as differences go. I mean, all of the characters are entirely the same. In fact, if you point out a character in the original, there's probably a duplicate of that character in the new series, except for a couple minor characters. All the big characters are there. The plot points are also basically exactly the same. In fact, the story is basically the same. The purpose of this show, I think, is just to offer a version of the same show for Korean viewers, so they don't have to watch a Spanish version, which I think is interesting right off the bat because Money Heist is already so global as a show, and already it's so dominant on the world scene. And originally it was only 2 seasons, and it did well with Spanish viewers, it did well in Spain, but then the world started picking up on it and it started growing and everyone was watching it, which is why they made 3 more seasons of the show. So because that show is so diverse and so appealing to everyone, I don't think a Korean version was necessary, but that doesn't mean a Korean version is not needed. There can still be highlights and things to get from this new version, so let's see, is there a reason to watch this or is there not? There are some things that are a lot better. I think right off the gate it has a better team. And what I mean by that is the cinematography is a lot better. I think the pacing is also a lot better. Just as far as enjoyment of the story goes, I'm never bored. I'm never being like, okay, can this episode end? There's always something happening, which is really great, but it's also not too fast-paced or not trying to shove action scenes in your face. Also, the music in this season is a lot better than the music in season 1 of the original. And like I said, the North versus South Korean dispute is one of the main differences in the shows, and it does a really good job of offering something new to the table. Up until about episode 4, I actually thought that the Korean version could be better than the original version, which is crazy, but only 2 episodes to wrap up season 1. It doesn't do it as well, and I think there are some problems it has that make it not stand up to the original just in this season. I think it has a lot of room to grow, but as far as this season goes, I don't think it stands up to the original. The last 2 episodes are where the plot really starts to take a new direction, and there are things that are different, and again, no spoilers, but as far as the destruction of the car goes, it's a lot different. Relationships between some characters are different. It also introduces a spy character, which again, no spoilers, but it's similar to the introduction of Gandia in season 4, and so it's interesting that they're introducing a Gandia character in season 1. There was no character like this in season 1. And also this character doesn't really do anything similar to Gandia, so I do think this was just a different plot point storyline that the Korean version just wanted to include, just to spice it up, make it different, and I like this addition. It honestly doesn't amount to much, to be honest, but there is a surprise that really shocks you, which is good because the show is so similar. A lot of the surprises, like, you already know what's coming, so it's nice to have a surprise that is different. So in that aspect, it is worth watching if you like the mind games and the surprises. It's not all the same. I do think the destruction of the car wasn't as good in the original. I do think a lot of the intense moments, they try to make it intense, but it ends up backfiring and not really being that on edge of your seat type show. That doesn't really make sense. At the end of the day, though, the first season does do a good job wrapping up all the problems it has, though it leaves us in kind of a lame cliffhanger, which I think the original never did. The cliffhangers were always incredible. You think back to the season 3 cliffhanger in the original where it's suspected that Raquel is dead. Like, that was crazy. I don't think there's anything nearly as grand as that in the Korean version. But the show does hold its own for a lot of the part. I think where it really does start to falter is the characters. The characters are not as good as the original, let's just be honest. I think the acting is not as top tier, and what I mean by that is characters like Tokyo and the Professor and Berlin are just not as grounded in their character. In the original series, Tokyo and Berlin and Professor were such unique character with complex mindsets and how they act and how they talk and how they work. And in this version, I think they're a little more surface level. They don't really get to grow. We don't get to see inside of them, if that makes sense. I think Berlin is the only character that really starts to live up to the name of Berlin, while the Professor and Tokyo are just much, much better characters in the original, to be honest. Berlin's played by the actor Park Hae-soo, which actually had a part in Squid Game, and I think he did a lot better in Squid Game than Money Heist, to be honest. A lot of the relationships are also feeling more forced, not as natural, where I think this was a big part of the original Money Heist, the relationships being good and kind of surprising and very natural, and you don't see it coming, so it's heartwarming when it comes. But Rio and Tokyo don't feel as real. The Professor and their version of the Inspector is a little more forced, considering they are kind of dating when the show begins, but not really. Again, I won't go too in depth, but yeah. Denver and their version of Monica is the only couple that I really kind of see happening naturally and me liking to watch them grow and become a couple. I will say the one character I enjoy more in the Korean version than the original version is Arturo. Arturo is not called Arturo in this version, but just so you know who I'm talking about. He is just so much more crazy and maniacal and such a jerk in this series, and I think it lets us hate him more, but he also does more good things. Like, he's trying to actually help the characters more, if that makes sense, but he's also hurting himself more. It's like really confusing and really conflicting. I think in that aspect they did a lot better job with Arturo. But the original series, I think right out the gate, they do something great with the characters, where in this version, the love for the characters and the characters kind of finding their way and being grounded in their characters is a lot slower, and it's going to take a lot of a longer time for them to reach the level of the original series. But other than that, I mean, the series is basically the same as the original. It doesn't really differ much at all, except for the final 2 episodes, and I do predict it will start to get more different and continue on that pathway of being its own series with different plot points and different kind of surprises, but as basic building blocks, the story is the same. I think if you're already a fan of Money Heist, or if you're a casual fan but just like the show and are looking for something new characters, a little bit of a different show, it's actually definitely worth the watch. I mean, like I said, I do like the cinematography, the story. It's like still an entertainment show. It's not like it's a bad rendition with a crappy team and a crappy budget. Like, it's an exciting show. But for someone who really isn't a fan and is looking for something completely new to watch, this is not the show for you. You're going to be watching a lot of the same, and you're going to be wondering, why am I even watching this? That being said, is it worth the watch? Most of the time, yes. Don't write it off as a complete copy. I think it will be its own show, but also be a rendition of an original, which is what I want to see. I want it to be like a version of the original, but also has some qualities that make it its own thing. I don't think it's exactly there yet, but, you know, with the way the show's going, I think it can get there. So anyways, there's my opinion. I think, yeah, it's definitely worth the watch if you're a fan. I think it has a lot to offer. I love the way it's going. I think there's so much Korean film that when you're not a Korean speaker, it's hard to get into. Stuff like Squid Game and All of Us Are Dead and Parasite are just amazing movies and TV shows where if you speak another language, it can be hard to get into. So I think this show is going to introduce a lot of Spanish speakers and also other speakers that are fans of Money Heist to Korean media, and I think it can be a big strength for them to grow and introduce their stuff to the rest of the world, which I see as a huge plus. I see that as a win. I think that's awesome. So yeah, I think that is a huge win. I think that's a good thing. I'm feeling like busting out a bunch of videos soon. The last episodes of Stranger Things come out in literally like 2 days, which I will be reviewing that season. I probably will do a separate review of Money Heist Korea, where I actually talk about the show with spoilers and give a numerical rating to it. Also with Avatar 2 coming out, I rewatched Avatar 1, and I'll probably do a rating of that. Yeah, lots of stuff coming. I'm super excited, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace out.